I know we didn't really want to get into politics here, so we'll talk about this shortly. What do you guys think of the lack of Filipino presence in politics in America, Canada, and other countries?
Uh, Jay, you want to go on that one?
Um, no, that's pretty there's a lot of layers that go into that.
Yeah.
I think that part of it is, one's perception of where one's power is. As a group, just Filipino people as a group, we're not even united amongst each other. If you look at other Asian groups like Chinese, oh man, they have like these benevolent organizations that help each other out, and it seems like they're way more organized. They have a business class that's very clear of a with a clear path, and they have a lot of understanding of what it means to be together. Filipinos, perhaps because we come from such a great diverse place, and because we have a certain kind of colonial mentality, we're not very organized amongst ourselves. So how can then we find organized leadership? We do have people who have attained places in politics for sure, but but it hasn't rose to the effect that maybe other Asian groups has. But I think a lot has to do with our own divisions. And because we don't have that, I mean, we might look homogeneous, but we're not really homogeneous as a people. Our main emphasis oftentimes is within our own family, for our family groupings. And so that's kind of like where we're our own tribal groupings. And so I think that plays a huge factor in our capacity to have, political power and political leadership. I think that we generally don't go beyond that because we don't see beyond that. But perhaps as we are the longer we are in our diaspora, in our places, I believe those things will change, and they already have changed. I mean, we've already had Filipino governor in a few states already. And I think,
yeah, Hawaii.
yeah, Hawaii. So
Hawaii
these things have happened.
But
So
the population there is very
right.
A lot of Filipinos there, so yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we just had our first Filipino mayor out here in the UK. She's on the conservative side, and yeah, so I mean, and she's a first generation, so things are happening slowly, from my understanding. But I think Jay's right. When it comes to politics, we're so split. But I mean, there's so many Filipino organizations that are for example, that would all be focused on the same thing. And the reason that there's so many of them is because everybody wants to be the leader of their own group, or they want to subdivide into their own group. It happens amongst Igorot folks.
Igor
Even
people,
over
we've
here,
done this a lot.
Yeah.
yeah,
Even over
this
here.
is not. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not uncommon for Filipino groups. Once it gets to a certain size, usually around 200, somewhere between 200 to 400 people, whew, there's a split.
yeah. I mean, yeah, even amongst, I think the Kalingos have their own group. The Bingits have. It was so different than when we were younger. When we were younger, it was just one group, and it was because we didn't have critical mass. We just had to be together, so it was out of necessity, and so of course the benefit of that was that we benefited from it because then we learned from each other. But then now that there's more Igorots, there's more Igorot folks out here, particularly in the UK and also in California. Now everybody's broken up into their own organizations. So the Bengits will have their own, the Ifugaos will have their own, the Kalinga folks will have their own, the Mountain Province people have their own, and even over here in the UK, and I've addressed this before, it's the Mountain Province will divide up into their own municipalities too. So we have the Basao organization, we have the Sakata organization. You know, like we have all the different municipalities. So of course, the one thing is at least they consider themselves all under one umbrella, Igorot UK. But people, when it comes to like doing their functions, they all want to do their own thing with their own group. And I think that's great. It does like positive and negative. I think that the positive side is like you get to celebrate very specific things from your specific area and maybe even talk in your own specific tongue, right? So like, you know, like, yeah, there are different accents from different areas and you can speak that language amongst your own people and then you feel a sense of comfort. But on the other side, sometimes the young folks, if they're not getting together with all those other groups, your young folks won't benefit because they won't see they won't learn about the other aspects of different people's culture. So it's plus and negative. But then when it gets to politics, oh my God, like, yeah, there's just so much, you know, people they're just so much headbutting is what I'm going to say. And it's not just Igorot folks, it's just Filipinos in general. And I mean, we've all heard of it, the crab mentality. You know, when someone goes up, somebody wants to pull that person down. And even way back in the 70s in San Francisco, just would tell stories about like the Filipinos during that time and how it was just kind of embarrassing because the Filipinos couldn't get together. I mean, you look at something, let's just look at media in general. The Filipino population in California is huge. And we're the second or first largest immigrant population next to Mexicans, right? But when you look at media, when you look at TV shows, especially when you know, like a drama about doctors and nurses, and then you hardly see any Filipino nurses. You know, what's going on? So you look at media and TV, you don't see us, and I think a lot of that has to deal with the fact that like, it's like if you don't ask, you don't get. You know what I'm saying? And if you don't ask as a people, you don't see yourself. You won't see that reflection in the media.
That's right. How could you have like ER, no Filipino nurse? Grey's Anatomy. The damn right? Filipinos in there. Come on.
No, but yeah, but then you'll see like in California, there's a more, in the last like 10, 15 years, there's more East Indian population has grown. But we've been there longer. But you see Indian folks on TV everywhere and all the TV shows back in the States. You know, there's always gonna be like an Indian character or something like that. You'll see more. You're more likely to see that than you will to see a Filipino character because Filipinos haven't come together to be able to speak. You know that.
So are you saying that it's like a part of like people not casting a Filipino person, or maybe we don't have as many Filipino the talent pool of Filipino like actor and actress is not big enough?
I don't know because there's so many Filipinos who are like involved in the arts, man.
Yeah, you would think that, right?
The one area I do see them is dancing. You got all the dance. You'll see the Filipinos in the dance and dancing in a lot of dance shows.
Yeah, it seems like they're dancing or singing, not necessarily acting. If they're acting, they're in the Philippines.
Yeah.
Just from what I've seen.
But that's a big deal, I think, you know, being able to see yourself, like an image of yourself, you know, on TV, someone representing you in some way.
That's true. I mean,
that's what we were talking about in the very beginning, right? We're talking about like, oh, Filipino. Like when you see one Filipino, oh yeah, let's see.
Right. Like one of my favorite shows is Kim's Convenience. A bunch of Koreans out of Toronto, right? But it makes me think, how come there's no like Filipino show based out of Toronto or something like that. I mean, that maybe because we don't have convenience store, but it just seems kind of like weren't Filipinos there about the same time or maybe even longer?
True, but even just a show about any Asian that's regular. So
yeah, very true.
Yeah,
Very
that's
true.
true too.
And a good show about Asians, you know. I think that there was that there was another show.
Margaret
Yeah,
Cho
she
tried
had-
to do one,
it was Fresh Off the Boat.
and then there was the other one about the that guy who's I think he's a chef, right? Chinese, Taiwanese family, I think. I forgot. Fresh Off the Boat.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Fresh Off the Boat. That was
Off
pretty
the
good.
Boat, that's
I watched
fun.
the first 2 seasons,
was
and
good.
that was pretty
Yeah.
good. I think that it's maybe not as good anymore in the later seasons.
Eddie
but
Huang didn't like the show though.
yes.
Yeah,
It
after a
was.
while.
He didn't like it himself. So
Yeah. So I think
I thought it was funny though.
I did too.
But I
it was
thought, like, for
interesting.
at least its first 2 seasons, it was quite compelling. It was good.
Great.
Yeah.
And maybe just because you just see the representation, like, ooh, wow, you know?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, and then just going back to the organization things and just our issues with that. Like, I gotta say, it's frustrating going through that where our organization split up, and not even like I don't want to go into too much detail, but not even just into like subgroups like the Kalinga groups or Mountain Province groups, but like the whole I don't know, the whole organization itself split up. Like I never understood why that happened, and the only explanation I got was, yeah, I think they were butting heads and he just wanted to lead and something happened with that, so they split groups. And it's just like, I never understood it. And it's just like, I thought we were all going for the same goal, and whether, this leader was there or not. I mean, fair enough, some leaders are better than others, but I mean, we're trying to do the same thing, so I just never understood it, and it's just so frustrating. And now, yeah, I don't know.
It's a recurring theme in Igorot organizations and just Filipino organizations everywhere around the world, I think. Just can't.
And it's just, and now trying to get back to those numbers is kind of difficult. I mean, we've been fortunate because there's been a lot of like immigrants coming to ours, but I know places like I know Seattle has been struggling, not as many immigrants going into there, so they're definitely struggling. But the only reason the organization that Idol and I are part of is still alive is because the immigrants coming in. Like, it's so hard to retain people and get people together, and everybody wants to do their own thing. It's just like, it's so crazy. Like, especially trying to learn from different from different provinces and tribes. Like, it's really difficult. So,
yeah,
I don't know. That's all I have to say about that. It's just frustrating.
It is.
Yeah,
it's like I said,
know.
it just
maybe
yeah.
Maybe with the next generation coming in, but that means me. I don't really want to get into that.
Well,
I'm not a political
do we,
person. I don't. That's not my
how
thing.
do we like change the ways? Because walking into this conversation, like what comes to my mind when it comes to like the whole split thing was there was another organization called Buggy Pine, right? That was another, that was like sort of like a sister organization to Bebop, and that organization like literally fell apart because of like internal political whatever. And so like taking